According to Arabic lore, a djinn is a demonic spirit that varies in morality and possesses supernatural powers. In many tales, the djinn can be summoned using rituals and is sometimes portrayed as a wish-granting genie. Despite dating back to pre-Islamic Arabia, the djinn has continued to be prevalent throughout the Islamic world, even today. People, including those not native to the Middle East, report encounters with these mythical beings every year. What follows are some of those tales of encounters with djinns that have gone terribly wrong. Djinn/Paranormal Encounters While Deployed, North Iraq, 19-20, by Beaver Tales. I got back not too long ago and thought I'd share my experiences. First, a bit of background. We get into the country and it's nothing big, just doing our jobs in the desert. Due to the nature of my job and mission, I was confined to the FOB. I worked nights the whole tour, so my work hours were 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. As you can imagine, I slept during the day. The base was a premier duty station for the Iraqi military. It was built in the 70s to 80s to accommodate the expanding army under Saddam's rule. So Gulf War 91 happens and we bombed it out. 03 we invade again and guess what? Bombed it out. Then occupied it until 2011 when we gave it back to the Iraqis. So there were countless suicides or combat-related deaths from years of surge and peak insurgency. In 2014 we bombed it out again because ISIS overtook it and was using it as a death camp. Olympic swimming pools on location were full of bodies and there was a steamroller used for running people over. From 2014 to present day, it has been occupied by the Iraqi army. So as you can imagine, this could be a hotbed of stuff. Occurrence Number One. It was about a month into my tour and I was dead asleep in my room. We slept in a 6x6 room with a roommate. I was fortunate enough to never see him since we had opposite shifts. I was racked out with my back to the center of the room and I woke up to a slight touch or grab to the back of my arm. I roll over and see what is 6'4", looking all black, shadow, standing 6 feet from me. I wear glasses and my vision is absolutely awful, so assuming it was one of my soldiers waking me up, I roll back over after putting on my glasses and nothing was there. So, tripped out, I get a hold of my roommate and he chalks it up to being some bad dream, and so did I. 2 months go by and business as usual. I go to work at 9 and my roommate settles in for the night. After a while he decides to head to the shower and the ambient light off his headlamp lights up my end of the room. He notices something out of the corner of his eye and looks to see what he said was a big-ass guy, big like its feet portion was hanging off your bed. It's like a college dorm-sized twin bed. And it was all black. So it was pretty much a shadow dude laying in my bed. My roommate said fight or flight hit him and he froze up. After looking away and back again when trying to find the actual light switch, it was gone. So he believed it after that and thought it wasn't just a dream. We told our PSG, a platoon sergeant, at Chow the next day and he was amused and interested. He's a believer in the paranormal and decided to speak his part. According to him, at this point in the tour, so about 3 months in, he's seen someone leave my room at odd times in the middle of the day, times I'm sleeping, and walk to the room across from us. The thing with the room across is that it had a padlocked plywood door and was locked because the guys who slept there were in Syria, so much of their gear they had to leave behind was still in there. You can't get in without hopping the plywood walls. So that was the extent of the creepy stuff with my living space. I don't think it's a djinn, but my interpreter said it probably was since it kept getting close to me and manifested physically. If I could describe it, it would look similar to the shadow dude captured on the Ghost of Carmel, Maine YouTube channel. Not spot on because I saw the shadow silhouette of a rather jacked and tall person. Occurrence 2. When taking a shit in the port's johns at night, you could hear footsteps and whispers around you. Keep in mind you're in a shitter next to a watchtower that's 150 to 300 meters away from another group of soldiers at 3 a.m. Nobody's awake to fuck with you except the other guy in the tower, and he can't abandon his watch since he's covering. Occurrence 3. I attended a sleep aid class with the medics and whatnot since I was having trouble sleeping soundly, and in the group there were soldiers waking up with bad dreams and with scratches on them, some of which were bad enough they bled, and it dried during their sleep. They discovered this after they woke up to bloody sheets. Nobody said anything other than the medic asking if he needs to look at it. Among other weird stuff, the entry point guys who man a big gate with obstacles would hear commotion like banging on the metal at the main gate at night and would go check it out and nothing would come of it. Towers would report people walking in the open area around the perimeter at night. Some would notice something on their nods, night vision, or in the darkness that their eyes adjusted to. But when SOG, the sergeant on guard, or other response elements would check it out, nothing would be there. A woman screaming was reported from towers in the vicinity of a bombed-out bunker and abandoned, half-destroyed building on the far end of the FOB. SOG responded, and we had no personnel report a rape or assault, yes, it happens out there, and nobody came up missing or astray. Tower didn't report anyone in the area, other than SOGs and relief around that time. The Guardian of the Valley by King Azul. This is super long, but I swear it's well worth it and 100% true. My wife posted this story before, but she deleted her account a day after, so I thought I should share it with y'all because it's mind-blowing. We are Lebanese, and we live abroad. A couple of years ago, we visited Lebanon for vacation. We went to a friend's house, which is located on top of the edge of a valley in the southern part of Lebanon. The valley is completely dark at night, and we were all sitting on the balcony, enjoying the nice breeze and good company. We were talking, and I remarked how creepy the valley is at night. Turns out, our friend has a story, and the valley has secrets. My friend's grandparents were farmers and frequently went for walks in the valley for some shade during the day. One time his grandmother was trailing behind his grandfather and she heard a rustling behind her. She turned around and she saw a massive black dog, but something about it was giving her bad vibes. She shouted to her husband to look at the dog, but he kept walking, didn't turn back, and told her to do the same. He told her if she ever saw this dog in the valley and she was alone, to never look at it or interact with it. The dog left after a while, and he told her that this dog is not actually a dog, but something else that guards the valley. It is not friendly and wants people away from there. The valley is huge. A man from the village had entered it years ago, and he found the opening of a cave. This was during the 50s or 60s. If you're not familiar with Lebanon, it's full of underground caves, grottos, and valleys. It's mountainous, and they still find artifacts of ancient civilizations, even today. Now, the cave was in plain sight. The guy had never seen it before, and suddenly there it was, open and inviting. So the man enters the cave, and he's met by a sight that makes him freeze. As far as the eye could see, there was gold and various treasures, long vases, incense holders, the works. What really stood out were the massive gold, bronze statues of upright bulls with horns, a deity perhaps. Lebanon is part of the land of the ancient Canaanites, who worship Moloch, symbolized by a bull, and Baal, among many other gods. So the man, understandably shocked, excited, and thinking he found the treasure of the century, runs out of the cave and into the village to lead everyone to what he saw. A group of men followed him, and he took them to the place where the cave was. Now, the entire village had been in the valley at some point. Nobody ever saw a cave, but the guy was adamant that he found riches that everyone had to see. This man was neither insane nor a drunk. He's a respectable man from the village with a solid reputation and a family. There was nothing. He was met by solid rock. There was no cave, no opening, no gold, no 10-foot bulls, nothing. The guy swore up and down, near hysterical, that he was there, that he entered it with his own 2 feet. He kept insisting that it was there and frantically looked all over, swearing on the Quran that he saw it, but there was nothing, so they couldn't really do anything but leave. If you're familiar with the stories of the Djinn, they are often summoned for different things. Some like to taunt people. Some do them favors for a price. Some of them choose people to uncover hidden treasures and riches forgotten by time. The shaggy black dog that my friend's grandmother saw, that was a Djinn. The theories are that either the Djinn was protecting the cave, or it was playing tricks on the man, or it was all a hoax. But these are solid, hard-working village people. They work to eat, and they don't have time for silly stories and theories, so the valley started to have a reputation. Now, my wife and I laugh and take it all with a grain of salt. Nice, interesting story, but that's about all we thought it was. At a bit past midnight, we left to make the 1.5-hour drive back to Beirut. Before you continue listening, there were no drugs or alcohol at all involved in this story. We are Muslim, and we cannot drink alcohol or take mind-altering substances. We are both sound of mind. This is not a joke. I'm driving back down these dark, winding roads with only the car headlights lighting our path. About 20 minutes into the drive, I see something ahead of me. The thing is, I'm driving, and this animal is not getting closer to the car, despite it walking, supposedly crossing the road. The more I move forward, the more I notice that this thing isn't getting closer. Then I notice the wool and the fur. Shaggy, ugly, matted wool hanging down its hind legs and rear as it walked. Its front was covered in darkness. Even though the headlights were on it, I could not see its head or front legs. Just a big, ugly back end of a shaggy animal. Imagine a car driving forward and an animal crossing in front of it. Except the animal's not moving with the car. It was always like 15 feet away, no matter how the road was winding. The car keeps moving and I start to panic a little. What the hell is this thing, and how the hell is it not getting any closer? Then it fucking sat on its hind legs, like a person. I kept driving, scared at this point, and it still wouldn't move. I couldn't catch up to it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I thought I was going insane. I tried not to scare my wife, but I was petrified. Then it stood on its hind legs and I swear to God it morphed into a human-like figure. Then it disappeared. Nothing but blackness was in front of us. I swear to God. My wife was like, "Did you see that?" And I noticed that both of us had been looking at it in pure shock and trying not to make the other person notice. I didn't say anything while I was looking at it. She saw it. I even asked her to describe what she saw, and she repeated what I saw, second by second. I am a grown man, but I was scared, in a raw, primal way that I had never felt before. We both felt a deep sense of dread, and both of us couldn't look at the rearview mirror, or even behind us until we were on the highway. We felt that there was something in the car with us until we reached the highway. Whatever it was, it is very serious about that valley. I am convinced it was listening to us that night, and that it manifested itself because we clearly did not believe my friend. Until this day, we both have never seen anything like it. We told everybody, including the friend we were with. He immediately told us that it's the Djinn that appears as a black dog. I will never forget what happened. I will always keep repeating the story no matter what. This happened to me. I saw it clear as day, and so did my wife. We were not under the influence of anything. It was not an animal. It was walking right in front of us, but kept moving at the pace of the car. And there is absolutely no reason for us to lie. A non-military related Djinn story by Shami Yana. I want to be clear that I would never lie about something like this. This happened in 2016, so it was the first time I've spoken publicly about it. I can't confirm when it was definitively. I always try to squash paranormal experiences with science and logic, but I can't explain this one. And based on the circumstances, I think it was a Djinn or something else supernatural. And yes, it's possible I did it to myself somehow, but why have I never done it before or again? It's just really strange. I've seen a lot of Djinn, which is an Islamic term for genie or demon, related posts lately, primarily from military folks. I've been fascinated with these creatures ever since I unfortunately encountered one. For context, I'm American and first became exposed to the concept of jinns after living abroad in Muslim societies. I'm non-Muslim and non-religious, FYI. But the most profound exposure was when I first went to Srinagar, Kashmir. I was invited by a friend and was staying at her home. If you don't know the history of Kashmir, you should know that it's the most militarized zone in the world and has had a lot of bloodshed over the years. As beautiful as it is, it's also very eerie as a result. I don't know how to describe it other than being very creepy at night with lots of weird sounds. Outside of the city and being in the Himalayas, there's lots of woodlands where jinns supposedly prefer to live. Anyway, while staying with my friend, I noticed things would happen to me at night, like my legs or arms would randomly be pulled. I thought maybe I was just jolting myself awake, but it happened multiple times each night. It was out of character for me. Then one night I felt like I had been choked awake. I was so shocked and confused. The next morning I finally opened up to my friend and her sister about what I had been experiencing. They told me that because I would sleep in only underwear and a t-shirt at night, it was hot weather at the time, I was possibly attracting a Djinn or their house angel passenger. The house angel could be jolting me awake as a way to warn me about not wearing pants, where I could then attract a Djinn. I was skeptical, but decided to wear pants, and the weird jolting stopped. A few days later, we decided to visit a rural, scenic area of Kashmir called Pahalgam. My friend's cousin, my now husband, yes, I met him here and we fell in love, took us there. When we entered, I started to feel extremely ill. It's hard to describe, but I felt very lightheaded, like I couldn't breathe, and an overwhelming sense of dread and anxiety. I honestly felt like crying and wanted to turn around. We chalked it up to the higher altitude, but I had been there to other areas with an even higher altitude in the previous days, and I felt fine. After sitting at a restaurant for some time, I finally felt better and we went exploring in the mountains. So I was frolicking in the hills with my now husband and we were just kissing. First no-no. A bit later I had to pee, so I had found a bush and did my thing. For those Muslims reading this, I know. Bear in mind I was a foolish American girl and my husband did not think to warn me. Because let me tell you, you should never pee outdoors. Especially in Djinn areas, because it's very possible you will pee on them or their home, and then they get pissed. So yeah, this is where things went downhill. I returned back to the UK, where I was studying at the time, a few days later, and I remember feeling absolutely horrible. I was vomiting and just feeling very hazy. I assumed I was just jet lagged and went to sleep. Now, we all know that when you're jet lagged, you pass out. I slept soundly for like 11 hours, not waking up to pee once. When I finally woke up the next day, I hopped in the shower and my body started to burn. Like, really burn. I was so confused why my body was burning, so I looked in the mirror. There were deep, curved scratches all over my chest, my breast, my stomach, somewhere in threes, which I think is an ode to the devil. They hurt so bad and were even a bit bloody. I later found out when a friend looked for me and took pictures that they were also on my back and right above my butt. The one above my butt was one downward curve and then two small horizontal curves inside it. And they were in awkward places where I honestly don't think I could do it to myself. I also didn't even have the nails to make such deep and intense scratches. I'm a very light sleeper and I just don't know how I could have done that level of damage to myself. I showed it to all my friends and they were all deeply disturbed and believed that I couldn't have done it to myself. I immediately told my Kashmiri lover, now husband, and he told me to recite from verses from the Quran that protect you from djinns. It was believed that I picked up a djinn in Pahalgam, and that it attached itself to one of the items I brought from there. Reading from the Quran seemed to stop further activity. I've been to Kashmir many times since, and refused to return to Pahalgam. Also, the scratches have never happened again. Of course, sometimes I scratch myself, but they're always very minimal. I've tried to recreate the curved scratches and I just can't. So I'm pretty positive it was a djinn attack. Again, I can't confirm what it was definitely. This is just my personal experience. I also have a few djinn stories from my Kashmiri in-laws. When my father-in-law was a teenager, he was hanging out in a playground area with a friend. Suddenly they saw an inhumanly tall, somewhat human-looking creature walking in the background near the trees. They were so terrified that they immediately ran away. He believes it was a djinn. When my aunt-in-law was in her 20s, she was newly married and out on a walk near trees and wooded areas with her husband. Apparently, a djinn in a tree saw her and possessed her. For the record, this was observed by multiple witnesses, and everyone verifies that this actually happened. They took her back to their house, and the djinn began to speak and laugh through her, which is terrifying as her voice changed. If I remember correctly, it was saying that she shouldn't have been wearing her hair down and walked carelessly by its home. It was a really mischievous djinn. It kept laughing hysterically and kept being super difficult when everyone asked it to leave her alone. An imam, the Islamic version of a priest, had to come and try to get the djinn to leave her body, but the djinn kept refusing. Basically, in the end, the djinn said it would only leave if they brought it a goat. So they had to go find a goat and leave it by the tree where the djinn lived, and then it finally left her body. She said that when the djinn possessed her, she blacked out and had no recollection of anything. She only knows what people saw her do. Again, multiple witnesses saw this happen with their own eyes, and my husband's family confirms it to this day. My husband's friend had stuff stolen from his home. So basically what you can do when that happens is find a Pir Sahib, which is basically someone that can communicate with jinns to achieve things or get information we can't get on our own. Seeing one is actually shirk or haram, meaning forbidden in Islam, but a lot of people in Kashmir still do it. There's also a lot of black magic used, which is a story for another time. So the Pir Sahib had to find a child. It can only be a child for the Djinn to communicate through. I guess because they're innocent and pure and don't have clouded minds. And so the Djinn had the child write or draw out what happened in the home and who the thief was. Because remember, Djinns can be invisible most of the time, so they observe things we can't. And guess what? It was accurate. They were able to discover who the thief was and how they stole everything. And when they confronted the thief, they confessed to everything. My husband's friend swears this is true and claims he actually didn't believe in jinns until this experience, as he was there when the Djinn communicated through the child. My husband said they tried to use him to do this once when he was a kid, but that it didn't work when he tried. I guess he's not as gifted. Okay, this next one is really scary. So a friend of the family was driving on a dark road one evening and suddenly saw a father, mother, and child on the side of the road trying to hitchhike. Since it was so late and this was clearly a family, he decided to help them. They quietly enter the back of the car. The guy remembers it being eerily quiet and suddenly felt very strange, but he figured they must be tired or something. As he's driving, he decides to look at them through the interior rearview mirror, and the people sitting in the back no longer looked human. They were something else. He was obviously freaked out at that point. Suddenly, the father of the group said,
"Don't look at us. Just keep going. We are a family of Djinn."
The guy, terrified, followed orders, and the Djinn father directed him toward a bridge and said to drop them off there as they lived under the bridge. The guy dropped them off and then sped home, utterly horrified. This one was hard to believe, but apparently it's 100% true. There's another story similar to this one from a different friend of the family. He was driving home very, very late at night. There was basically no one on the roads, and then he saw a pregnant woman and a man on the side of the road. Because the woman was pregnant, he wanted to help give them a ride. The man directed him to drive them to a field. The guy thought that was super odd, but obliged. When he got to the field, there were sticks everywhere, with flames on them in the field. Super weird. The guy suddenly became terrified and watched in awe as the couple, without saying a word, exited the car and started walking into the field of sticks with flames until he could no longer see them. So it was likely this was a Djinn couple. The guy rushed home, shocked at what he had seen. He went back the next morning and there were no sticks in the field. It was completely cleared out as if nothing had ever been there. Again, hard to believe, but he claims he's not lying. Moral of the story, don't pick up people on the side of the road late at night. So, Djinns are shapeshifters and can take forms of animals, humans, whatever. The creepiest part is that they can look and act like people you know if they want. This tends to happen a lot in Kashmir, and people know not to open doors late at night. Another friend of the family was sleeping late at night and suddenly someone started banging on the door. The person banging on the door claimed he was a relative, a certain uncle of the family. He kept saying it's an emergency and to open the door. He tried for a long time. Because it was so late, the woman inside knew this was odd and decided to ignore it and refused to open the door. I think she looked out the window and it even looked like her relative, but she still sensed something was wrong and wouldn't open. The next morning, she called the relative asking if he had been banging on her door trying to get in. He said no, and claimed he had been sleeping all night and never left his house. Crazy. So the conclusion was that this was likely an evil Djinn trying to get in and maybe possess someone in the family. Some Djinn want to possess bodies because it gives them more strength, power, etc. My sister-in-law claims she had a Djinn following her many years ago. She was exiting the washroom and her cousin saw a black figure or shadow exiting behind her. At this time, she claimed she was really depressed and having a lot of issues, like she was sick a lot of the time. She ended up having a ruqya session, basically an Islamic cleansing ritual to ward off bad energy or jinns, and felt better and back to normal after that. Jinns love brides. There's a lot of stories about jinns trying to ruin weddings or possess the brides because they get very attracted to them. I think there was one story I heard where a djinn locked a bride in her room and the family couldn't get her out for a while. That's why you often see brides wearing scarves over their faces during bridal ceremonies, not only to prevent Nazar, evil eye, but to also protect them from djinns, but I could be wrong about that. People can send djinns to other people. There's one story I heard, unrelated to Kashmir, where a woman was planning to engage in a lawsuit against someone. That person sent a djinn to her in the mail. It was in an object, I think a drawing of a hand with weird text or something like that. When she touched it, the djinn got in her, and every time she would try to speak out about the case, the djinn would prevent her from speaking. When the imam was questioning her, the djinn kept speaking and claimed it wasn't Muslim. When the imam invoked the Quran, the djinn got scared. There's actually a YouTube recording of it. It could be faked, but it sounded pretty real to me. You can just search this on YouTube and you'll probably find it, although it's pretty freaky, so be warned. You can also find Ruqya sessions on there where people's bodies are possessed by djinns, allegedly. It looks pretty real to me. I hope you enjoyed these. There are so many more, but these are the best ones I've heard. After hearing these stories, my curiosity about djinns has piqued. Before rating these, my only encounter with djinns was in The Witcher. I might make a documentary about djinns in the future. If you'd like to see that, let me know in the comments. Until next time, this is Terror Tales saying, don't look behind you.